Hi, everybody, and welcome to our Working with Property Set Data in Civil 3D webinar. We are excited to have Seth Cohen here with us today to show you guys around and to go over this webinar with us. So just a couple of housekeeping items here before we get started. All attendee lines will be muted for the presentation, so that's just to keep everything flowing. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, please do go ahead and send those to us via the chat box or the questions box, and we will be answering those at the very end. This webinar will be recorded, and it'll be on our YouTube channel later on this afternoon, as well as that you will be receiving that recording if you're registered for this webinar. Last thing here, if you have any questions, concerns, anything that we might be able to help with, you can give us a call here at the office at 305-445-6480. Or shoot us an email at info@ddscad.com. All right, so next slide. Perfect. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Seth.
Thanks, Alan, and welcome everybody. So today we're going to talk about what property set data is. You may have heard about it, seen some information from Autodesk, or for maybe you've seen it in the ribbon and you're kind of like, well, when am I ever going to use that, or what am I going to use it for? I'm going to try and show that how to use it with Civil 3D objects. For me, I like it in kind of both. You can also use it with AutoCAD objects. So we're going to kind of go over how to do it with them as well. And then we'll talk about how to actually make a table, export to Excel. Basically, once you have the information to the data or to the objects in CAD or Civil 3D, you obviously want to do something with it, like put it in a table or Excel. And if time allots, I'll go over some of the new 2024 features, which there are not that many new ones. To me, it's a little disappointing, but that's just me. Like I said, if time allots, we'll kind of go over some of those. All right. As you guys probably know, I'm not really a big PowerPoint guy, so let's just kind of dive right in. Okay. So first, let's define what property sets are, or property set definitions are. So property, if we're all familiar with AutoCAD, we know what attributes are, right? Attributes are information that you add to blocks, like the chair type or the company, or let's say, a bolt size or whatever, right? So we all know what attributes are when it comes to blocks. It's literally the same exact thing, except it's on steroids, and you can basically associate it to any objects. And Civil 3D, in fact, all of the AEC software, whether it's AutoCAD Architecture, I'm not sure if Mechanical does, but I know it's AutoCAD Architecture, as well as Civil 3D, they take advantage of that system. In fact, it came from AutoCAD Architecture originally, and now in Civil 3D/AutoCAD, we have it exposed to us, and we can leverage it in different ways. And that's what I kind of like about it. It's a pretty nice little system in that it's pretty flexible, and that allows you to kind of, as far as the imagination wants to go, and how you want to leverage it and use it. Okay. All right. So first, let's actually talk about the example we're going to do here. So let's say I have a tree survey that I want to do, and I have one company's let's say is providing the survey from a surveyor's perspective, and then let's say an arborist from the city or the county is giving me their own data, but their data comes from a GIS system, which is somewhat accurate. So I want to bring all that data into Civil 3D as COGO points, but then I want to apply different properties to those points, so that I can then, make a tree survey map, or just have it for information to know, how I'm going to do my design or whatever else that I'm doing with this project, let's say. Okay. So there are some ways you could do it with just COGO points. You sure could, with descriptions and your description key set, but the flexibility doesn't exist in Civil 3D to kind of make it pretty, I guess you would say. And so we're going to use property sets to kind of manage that and make things do what we want them to do. Okay. So first, let's go ahead and just bring some of the data into Civil 3D. All right, so I'm going to go to the Insert tab. This is nothing spectacular here. We're just bringing in point files. All right. And first, I'll bring in the survey data. So I'll go ahead and browse to the survey data, which is right here. This is a tree survey. So this is obviously very accurate. So this is a PNAZD, delimited. Okay. And I do want to add these into their own point groups to categorize them. So I'll go ahead and just call this from survey. So it's not survey, spell that right. All right, and then click OK. And I'll just go ahead and make sure I pick the right one. I always make sure we get the right one, PNAZD, delimited, and we are good to go. and I'll do a zoom extents, and there are my points. And of course, again, I'm using description keys to map the size of the tree as well as the description, just 8-inch deciduous in this case, and the block, of course, right? So we're just using description keys to map that. All right, now I have another point file, all right? But this point file is from the arborist, okay? Now, if you want to look at this, let's just kind of take a look at this real quickly here. This is from their GIS appliance that they have out in the field, and they just literally went in and located stuff, and they sent me this data actually as a tape. It wasn't even an Excel spreadsheet. I had to make it a CSV. It was just like a Word document that they exported from whatever application they use. A lot of people, a lot of companies or people use different types of software, but they gave me lat long. As you can see here by the column, it's point, and I added that. They don't have points. They just have their own kind of unique system that they have. But this is point number, lat long description. And so I just want to kind of point this out. Many times throughout whatever you do in civil engineering, obviously a lot of other sub-consultants don't have Civil 3D. They may not even have actual civil engineering software. They're using something totally different. For instance, if you're getting borings, the boring engineer may actually just have their own little GPS unit, or they give you KML or something like that, all right? So there are many ways that you can bring the data in with Cocoa Points to kind of leverage a little bit of the Civil 3D functionality. So basically, let me go ahead and bring it in first, all right? I'll just go ahead and select it. And I'll just show you one that I've created here. This is just a lat long. If you're not familiar with this, you can create your own point file formats, okay? What you do is, it's in the settings tab, but right over here you have access to it. So if I hover over here, you'll see this is the manage formats. And you can say new. I've already created it, but basically it's really straightforward. It's just the name you give it, the extension you want to go with. Again, it could be anything. It's just a text file, right? That's all it is, and that's all a CSV file is too. It's just a text file. What's your delimitation? Is it a comma? Is it whatever other piece of text or something like that? And then you simply add the columns that you want. So these will all say unused, as you can see here by the rest of these. These say unused, right? So you just click and you tell it what you want this to be. So this can be point number, it can be whatever. So of course I've got point number, lat, long, raw description, etc. But what it can be, just so you know, it can be decimal degrees, it can be degrees, minutes, seconds. Civil 3D can read all that. Now the other cool thing, I'm not going to get into it in this presentation, but just to mention it, you can actually add your own user-defined classification, and I can add whatever columns I want. Let's say someone has sent me a CSV and it has the county. Let's say it's a bunch of control points. It has the county that it's in. It has the project number that I want or that they've used. It has the section and township range in there. So I can actually add that as a column into Civil 3D, so it actually brings it in with the data. It's actually pretty powerful functionality if you want some additional information, okay? So for now, we'll just go with what all I did here was a point number, lat long, with a description, okay? Just so you know, you can also load a file, and then you would click on those and map the columns, okay? I'll just hit cancel here. All right, so that's the file format I'm going to use. And then I also want to add these to their own point group as well. And I'll call these points from arborist. And we'll just click OK here. All right, just to kind of see those different point groups right here. So if I right click here and choose select, you'll see those are those points, and obviously the rest of them are all from the survey, okay? Now, what I want is I want to be able to, my goal is to actually have a tree map that has a label that says, hey, these are from the arborist, so just, they may be within 3 to 4 feet for all we know, right? Depends on what cell coverage they have and what that unit, the accuracy is. That's usually they're usually like within a couple of feet. Sometimes they're off by a lot. That's what I've actually found. Depends on where you are, okay? So anyway, so let's go. I want to actually do that. Now, you can't really do that easily with anything in Civil 3D. So what you want to do is you can use what's called property sets, okay? So where are the property sets defined? So if you go to the Manage tab on the ribbon, okay, right here in the Property Set Data panel is Define Property Sets. Just so you know, you can also type in Style Manager. That will also bring this up. Now, one thing before I even get into this, I want to just show this right off the bat, because I was trying to kind of, work with certain types of this functionality, and I couldn't find the categories of, because I don't use AutoCAD Architecture. Again, that's where this comes from. So one of the things that happens when the second you run that command is right over here. You don't notice it, but if you kind of look a little closely, it's kind of like grayed out or grayish, like it's highlighted. I'm colorblind, so it looks kind of bluish to me. Someone will say, hey, Seth, that's not the color, but it looks like a cyanish to me. But this is actually a filter, and it does activate the second you run that command. So if you turn this off, notice what happens. You have access to the rest of the style manager functionality. Okay, just be aware of that, because there's other things in here that you can do that you're like, hey, I saw this thing on YouTube, or this, I saw that property and it's not there. How come? Well, it's probably because this is turned on. It's filtering the thing you have selected, right? It's okay. I honestly don't know why that does that. There's not that many categories here to filter, but who knows? Maybe when you're working with it a lot with AutoCAD architecture, you want that ability because it gets too big, okay? So right here is property set definitions, okay? And as I always say, when in doubt regarding the interface, right click. So whenever you don't know what to, whenever you kind of, you're in doubt as far as what to do, just right click here, okay? And then you choose new, and we want to create one called tree information, all right? So if you look at the general tab, it's pretty straightforward. So the way this works is on the left side here, you add stuff, and on the right side, you select the different tabs and stuff that are up here, okay? So if you just go through the tabs, you can add a description, here's the name, but here's the magic of it. So this property set definition can apply to any object type literally in the AEC collection, including, of course, AutoCAD. So you can see here there's contours. That's actually, I think I actually land desktop contours. But anyway, there's all kinds of stuff here. I want this to apply to Kogo points. Now, a little trick here is you can type the full entity name. So if I type in Kogo, so C-O-G-O, watch what happens. It doesn't go to the O's and then the G's and then the O's back to the O's. It goes to Kogo. So you can just type that in there. So all I want this property set to apply to is Kogo points. So I toggle that on, and then I'll go to the definition tab. And here's where the magic happens. You kind of add in whatever it is. Again, you can do formulas. You can actually grab properties from the actual data. We're going to do that. We're going to grab the polyline length to do utilities. But for now, I just want to add a manual property set definition. So like right there is add a manual. So I'll just click that, and you're going to give these the name of what you want this to be. So it's up to you. So in this case, these are trees. I'm going to first do the species. All right, and I'll go ahead and add a new one. And I also want the condition of the tree, right? Then I want the level of quality, so LOQ. And then I want the source. In other words, who gave me the data? Now, what you can do once you have these in here is it exposes the rest of these different columns here. So you can change the description. You can change the type that is. I'm going to leave it as text. We're going to get into this in a second, or later on in this webinar. Where's the source from? And then right over here is the default. So I can actually type this in here. So let's say in this job here, I've got the majority of them are oak trees, okay? So I'm going to just type oak in there. And for the condition, I'm going to take a default of fair, let's say. Again, you can change these, of course, based upon the actual survey, right? Level of quality, let's say D, all right? And then the source, we'll say surveyor as the default, all right? Once that's done, you simply click OK here. All right, now how do you add that property set definition to actual data in the drawing? Again, this is not just Civil 3D objects. This can be Civil 3D or AutoCAD objects or whatever. Okay, so right now, let's just do the arborist, all right? So I'm gonna go ahead and right-click up here in the tool space and choose Select, so I can select those entities. It's just a quick way to add, and again, that's why I categorize them. All right, then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna navigate to the Properties palette, okay? And this is where you add the property set definitions. It's in the Extended Data tab of the Properties palette. It's kind of hidden, but it's right here in the bottom left location. Here's where you add property sets. I'll go ahead and just click on that. Now, what it's doing is it's showing me whatever property set definitions I added to the drawing that apply to this specific type of object I have selected. in this case, I have COGO points selected. I only have one property set definition. As an example, when we do polylines, I'm going to add a 2 so you can see what happens. Basically, it's showing me the property set definitions, but you can have more than one. So there could be a different set of properties you want to associate to different points that you would see listed here, like let's say maybe utility points or whatever, okay? So I'll just click OK here. And now if I navigate to the properties palette, you now see they're right there. Now, so I can just go through the list and I can say, okay, this source is from the arborist. So I've got these all selected. And so now I'll just type in arborist. Then I can, of course, the level quality in this case is D because that's the lowest quality. But I'm going to hit escape and I'm going to go ahead and just, looking at my symbols, I'm going to select these two and I want to change these species to pine. And then maybe these are all oaks, but this one here happens to be an ash tree. Whoops, I got more than one thing selected. We'll just click here, and then I'll type this as ash tree, okay? All right, so I'm done with those. And now what I'll do is I'll right-click on From Survey, choose Select, and now I will add property set data to them. And now this is from the surveyor. These are level of quality, of course, A, because I've surveyed them. And then you could go in and globally change the default kind of one that you see the most of. In this case, I'm seeing a lot of, actually it's a lot of both. But you get the idea. And then what you can do is simply select the entities that you want to change. And yes, you would have to go in and change them yourself. If you put them on different layers, which I did not, the description key is just controlling one layer for trees, all right? But you could actually put them on their own unique layer, do a select similar, right? And then change them in this way as well. And of course, I could go over here. I'd look at my field notes and say, hey, these are all in excellent condition, right? You get the idea, right? You're just changing or associating the property to the actual objects in the drawing, right? I'm going to save just for fun because I was, oops, I did save as. Let's just do a save. Okay. So that's great, but if I look at the label style, I'm not seeing anything, right? All I see here is the point number, the elevation, which I don't even need the elevation for trees. I don't really care. And then the size of the tree and what type it is, okay? So what I want to do is I want to actually leverage property set data to actually add a label style or use an existing one, so that actually leverages and uses that data, okay? So of course, this is all in the settings tab under points. And then these are label styles, of course. Now, let me look at the default one that these are all using. I believe they're using northern eastern elevation or point elevation description. There we go. Let's go ahead and make a child of that. I want to keep all the same settings because I like the settings of it. But I want to basically control some additional properties. So a little trick, if you're not familiar with this, you can make child styles, right? Notice how this one here is, it's a global one, point number, elevation, description, and then I have one just for description, elevation, just point. But they're all children of this main one here, and so they'll take on all of the properties of the parent until you override that specific property or bunch of properties. So I want to grab this one here and say new. That's how you make a child. In fact, you'll see right here it says child in the name. So I'm going to call this one tree info, or just tree info is fine. We'll just call it tree info. So, of course, it grabs all the layers and everything from it, all right? And then in the Layout tab, what I want to do is a couple of things. Firstly, I want to shut off elevation. I just don't care about the elevation. So you'll notice here this has 3 components in this label style. I'm going to go ahead and shut off elevation. So I'm going to go to the visibility property and set this to false. Now, of course, it looks ugly. I need this to go over here. So I'm going to go to that property or that component, which is description. I want to anchor it now to the point number. How simple this is, all right? Now, I want to add my own component, a new one, just for the tree property set data. So the way you do that is you click this drop down here, and then click text. We'll call this tree info. And notice how it just plops it right there on the feature with the justification, with the default justification. Now, a lot of people get confused by this, so let me just kind of go over it in detail. So first off, I want to anchor this to the description. So I can click on the anchor component and choose point description. Now, it's anchored there, but it's in a really weird spot. So a lot of people, I still to this day, I see kind of people getting confused. The way it works is right here. So the anchor point is saying, hey, I'm anchored to point description, which is a piece of text. Its justification is whatever it is, right? But it's anchoring it to the top left justification, which is right there, right? That's the top left corner of the piece of text, right? That would be the bottom left corner. That would be middle center, right? It's that simple. So I want to, of course, go to bottom left, but it still looks really weird, right? So now you go to the text component, and even though this says attachment, which is silly, it should say text justification. That's what it should say, all right? But they made it generic for lines and blocks, etc. But so I understand that. So I want to change this to top left. That's the justification of this piece of text. That's that simple, okay? So now it looks like that. All right, so let's go to the contents property, and I actually want to change this to actually use the property set data. I'll just go in here, do a Control A, backspace a bunch. All right, now to add the data I want, so let's again, I can organize this in whatever order I want. It doesn't have to be in the property set order. So let's say I want the species to be the, or actually I want the level of quality to be first. So I'll do LOQ, all caps, colon, and then what you do is you simply go to the property sets tab right here, and it will show you all the property set definitions associated to the entity that you're in. So if it was for alignment, you would see different, different property set definition there. If you had a property set definition for alignment, all right? We only have the one, of course. So we'll pick LOQ. I want to all uppercase no matter what. Click that. Got it. Click here once. Press enter. Now I want the species. So species, colon, space, changes to species, all caps. Add that, click once, press enter. I want the condition. I'll just type CUND, colon, space, and uppercase. Click that, press enter. And what's the last one? Species and source. So we want source, colon, space, and all uppercase, click that, click OK. And so basically, if, let's just hit OK, see what happens, all right? We'll look at that. It does look kind of weird. Of course, nothing happened to these yet because, remember, if you've ever used points, these are actually leveraged by the point group, right? So if I right-click here and go to properties of the point group, it's using this point label style. So I'll just change that to tree info and then click OK here. And now you can see that. We'll do the same thing for the survey. Go to properties, and then go to tree info. Now, again, it looks a little bit off, right? Of course, and it is. So one of the things about the label styles, it does this sometimes. I like to show errors, obviously, because I like to fix them and show you guys how to fix them. Let's go to that component, and all it is basically it's the justification. So if I click inside here, it's center justified, which again, even though it really wasn't initially, it sometimes does it that way. So I'll just do a Control A inside here. And then go to, whoops, let me do that one more time. Control A. All right, we'll just select them all. And right over here, we'll just pick left, click OK, and click OK. And now everything looks pretty, okay? And of course, it's dynamic. So if I go over here and say, hey, this is actually, let's say I get them all surveyed again or whatever. Now that's LODA, right? You get the point. Just like Civil 3D, it's a dynamic kind of label, okay? And so that's basically how you add it to Civil 3D objects. Kind of a real case scenario here, and then basically it'll update automatically. Now, when it comes to property set definitions, just so you know, as far as, you don't have to do this every time, the property set definitions are stored in the file, right? So basically, if you had a template, they're already in there, you're kind of ready to go, okay? All right, so the next example I want to show you is utilities. And again, if you guys have any questions as we're going through, just feel free to add them, and then at the end of the webinar, we'll answer questions, okay? All right, so let's talk about utilities. So let's say I've got, forget pipe networks or pressure networks. I just have regular AutoCAD objects. I just have lines or polylines or whatever it is, okay? So in fact, I'll go ahead and draw a few here. So let's actually draw some sanitary lines. So let's do sanitary sewer. Oh, we'll go here. Yeah, we'll just draw this one here, and just draw a polyline. Let's say I've got some sewer lines here, one there, Done there. And let's draw some water lines. So we'll go draw a water line. And I will even draw a line, because as it is sometimes when you get utilities, these are lines, right? So if you look here, right, those are actual lines, okay? All right, so I now want to have some sort of way of adding some additional information to this. Now, if you're familiar with Map 3D or Civil 3D at all, Map 3D does come with Civil 3D, and you could add object data. That's another way to do this, and that's kind of what property sets are. It's just that Map 3D is kind of dying. I don't want to say that, but it kind of is. And so there's more functionality with property sets. There just is, and it's much easier. With map object data, you had to create this block, and this block then had to have these attributes with it, and it was this really funny way, a weird way of bringing it in and labeling it, and it was just, it's like old technology. Property sets are new technology, and they're going to obviously stay because they're used in AutoCAD architecture and other AEC software. So let's go to define property sets, all right? And let's go ahead and right-click here, and we'll say New, and we'll say Utilities. All right, and so what do I want to apply this to? So I want to type LI because I want this to apply to lines as well as POLY, so that gets me to the polyline. And I want this to be applied to polylines. And I also always just, pick polyline 2D because that's the old LW polyline object type, and you never know, you might get it, okay? So let's go back to the definition tab now, and we're going to add these manual ones here as well. So it's a similar type functionality. So I want to do LOQ for level of quality. In there, so LOQ, and then I want to add type. I want to add size. I want to add owner. I want to add material. And for future use, I want to add the length of the entity. Okay, now this may or may not work depending on how these objects are. If you want to see like the total length, sometimes if it's a polyline, it does too much, right? Because you might want to see each individual segment. It depends on how it's connected, okay? But I'm going to show you how to do it anyway. So if you look right over here, if I go to Add Automatic Property Set Definition, if you scroll down, you'll notice how you can toggle on the length for polylines and whatever other entities. I think actually on this yeah, and here's lines too. Yeah, it does it for lines too, right? So because those entities are in the drawing, it's grabbing them, and that's what it's allowing you to see. Okay. So again, but you can do layer, you can do elevation, you can do area, all kinds of really cool stuff, right? So I'll click OK here, and now that's in there. All right, so I'll click OK. All right, now how do you add data to the regular polylines? It's the same exact functionality. So I'm going to go ahead. So again, you could do this a couple of ways. I can do one, let's say I want to do one utility at a time. These are on the same layer, right? Click select similar, right? And then if I go to the properties palette, same exact thing. If I click here, you'll notice that there's utilities. Oh, actually, let me hit cancel here. I want to do something else too. Let me go to define property sets. So let's add a new one, but let's say we're going to call this one roadway features. And I'll just add a couple of properties here. So we'll add some manual. We'll call this one owner, maybe, and type. Maybe we'll call it feature type. Now, just so you know, you cannot do spaces in these. It'll let you, but it won't work properly afterwards. So you want to always put an underscore or a dash. And maybe we'll call it feature type like edge of pavement or top of curve or something like that, okay? All right, so we'll just click OK here, and then click OK. So I did that because what I wanted to, oops, I forgot to, let me go back there. Forgot to associate it to the type, right? So let's go back to roadway features, applies to, and let's say we want to apply to, I don't know, we want it to do lines, arcs, right? Because these can be all different types of roadway features. Maybe circle, which would be kind of rare, but you never know. And then polylines, so we'll just go ahead and pick on that, polyline 2D, and then click OK here. So now, again, let's do that, what we were talking about. I'll select one, right-click, select similar. So I've got all the sewer lines created. And now if I go here and pick this, so again, I just wanted to show this to you, is that if you do have property sets that can be associated to the entity that you've toggled on there, it'll pop up in there. You don't have to do it. You can just toggle it off, right? So it's only going to add that one in there. But you can have multiple different property sets for different object types or whatever, okay? So we'll click OK here. Notice how it pops up here. Now I forgot to do defaults, so obviously nothing's coming out. I'm gonna have to type all these in here. But again, I could go in here, if I go to define property sets, go to utilities, right? I can change it, on the fly. It's gonna allow me to do it. So if I go to default here, not for length, but let's say low quality is D, because that's typically, unless you get GPR. Let's do material, maybe it's PVC. Maybe the owner, my client's mostly the city of Live Oak. Now I'm going to show you in a second here how you can automate this without having to type it in every single time, okay? For size, let's say we'll just do 6 inch. And then for type, we'll say sewer, right? And then click OK. And so now if I select these here, it doesn't do it to the ones that I already applied it, but so I would just go in here and I would have to actually type these in. Let's say these are clay. The owner is city, or let's call it Columbia County. Columbia County. And maybe the size of these is 4 inch. And the type is sewer. All right, let's do the water. So I'll just press escape here. Again, select one, right click, select similar. And maybe I'll pick the polyline as well. I don't have more than one, but I would do a select similar. Now, if I do the same thing here, because lines and polylines can be used, right? It exposes that property set for me. So I'll just do that, hit OK. Now, because, of course, these are done afterwards, right, it did add the defaults to it, okay? So, of course, we want to do, water. And then maybe this here is, that's fine, City of Live Oak. And maybe these are all 12-inch water mains. So we'll just do 12 inches. And these, let's say these were located with GPR, so these are B. All right? And these are ductile lines, so DI, okay? I'll press escape. Maybe this one here, we'll make this one different and unique for later on, okay? So maybe this was done with, this is PVC here, and this is an 8-inch. All right? Okay, so notice how I was having to type in the every time, but wouldn't it be nice to have a way to where you could actually, actually just pick from a list, right? So I have these 5 clients in this area. So I've got the City of Live Oak, the county, a private client, or whatever it is, okay? Or I have default sizes, 6-inch, 8-inch, 4-inch, 12-inch, you name it. Or different level of qualities, right? So there's 4, A, B, C, D, right? So, how can you add a list to that? So back in the defined property sets, remember what I said? It does this filter thing, right? So just first toggle that off. Like I said, there's a whole slew of other things that you can do here that are really powerful, all right? So let's go ahead and expand list definitions here, okay? So this is where you define a list. Notice how there's some predefined in here. These come in every drawing. It's the Civil 3D. It's kind of showing you some examples of what you can do, all right? Again, when in doubt, right-click. So if you right-click here, we'll choose New. And I first want to do a level of quality. So this will be LOQ. All right. And this is really straightforward. You're just adding the list of what you want it to be. So I'll click Add here. And this will be A, Add, B, Add, C, Add, D. I'm done. There's my list. All right. Now, I want to add another list. Let's go ahead and say New. And I want to add a new list called Owner. And I want to add City of Live Oak. Enter. Click Add. I want to add Columbia County. And let's add one more. Maybe we'll do Suwannee County. Oops. Caps. And then click OK here. Oh, actually, I forgot to do something. Let's go back there. So how do you apply that list? Let me just turn that back off. All right. So how do you apply whatever list you have defined in here to the property set that you have? So let's go ahead and click on the utilities. All right. And then you'll notice here this type column. All right. So for the level of quality, if you click over here and pick this drop down, you can do the list. And it's saying, okay, that's great. Now, what source list do you want? Well, I want to, oh, am I in the right spot? That should be showing the list. Let me try that again here. LOQ, General, oh, that's right. I got to toggle this on. My bad. I forgot to toggle on manual property set definition for there. And same thing with this one. And we'll just hit apply. Go back to utilities. And then now pick here. There we go. All right, so this is level of quality. And then for owner, I want to make this a list right here. And that exposes this. And now we can do owner. All right. And of course, you can pick your default right there, right? Whatever it is. Click OK. And so now I can pick these here. Let's just do the line. I'll do a select similar. Properties. And you'll notice here I can pick it from the list. I can change it around as I want to, right? Just from that list. All right, so this will make this Columbia County. All right, so you get the idea, right? It's pretty straightforward, and that's kind of a nice way to kind of add those additional kind of lists in there, all right? All right, so once you have that done, right, again, it's useful in that you can select this, go to properties, you know, it shows you the length here, it shows you the material, all that good stuff. But of course, at the end of the day is, you know, you want to do something with the data, right? It's fine in the drawing, but I want to actually, you know, put it in there and actually make a table, let's say, or export to Excel, maybe export to Excel to get a total table in that respect, okay? So what you do is you have to create what's called a schedule. That's what it's called. Again, this comes from AutoCAD architecture. So if you ever done, you know, door schedule or window schedule in an architectural set of plans, that's kind of where it comes from. So you just start kind of typing in schedule, and you'll see here that I can click on that. All right. Now, here's where you add the style. So if I do it this way, notice how it filters it. But again, I could have just gone to property set definition and just grabbed it that way, right? Again, it's just doing that whole filter thing. Again, I don't know why it does it, because it's really maybe 7 here. It's just a handful. It's not that hard to deal with. So anywho, so what you do is just simply right-click on this here, okay, and choose new, all right? And for this name, I want to call this one the existing, and we'll do all caps here, EX utilities. All right, so just going from like left to right, that's the name. What text type do I want this to be? 0.07. I can also pick a different style here for the text. Let's say I want my f-dot style, all right? Applies to what entities, all right? So obviously you want to pick the entities that it should apply to, or you can do it manually when you pick in the drawing. It's completely up to you. I sometimes recommend you actually select them in the drawing, because then it only picks those entities that you want to apply the table to. Because if you do all polylines, it might grab all the property set definitions. That might be a little different, right? Just kind of be aware of that, okay? So if we go to columns here, actually in this case we will actually do, let's just do the polylines and the lines. So we'll just do lines here. Where are we? Lines, and then polylines. And we'll pick that as well, and then columns. And so right here is where you add the column. So it reaches in and says, okay, these are the different property sets that you've associated to that, okay? So again, you can define the column in whatever order you want, right? So for the first column, let's say I want owner, all right? So I'm gonna pick owner as this. Now, whatever you see here, just so you know, that's actually what it's actually, that's what it's gonna put for the header. So I want all caps, so we'll do owner. Click OK. And then we'll add another column here. And let's do, so I want to do City of Live Oak. We want to do the material. Actually, no, we'll do the type, right? Sewer. So type. Hit OK. I want to do the size next. Hit OK. And I want the material. And then we'll lastly add the length. I don't care about level of quality. That doesn't matter to me. All right, and then we'll just call it length. And then click OK. And then click OK. All right. Now, you might think you just hit add here, but that's kind of wrong. It's kind of weird how this works. So I found that you've got to type the command -schedule. All right, and maybe there is a way. Again, this is kind of new to me too, so I'm not an expert in this using this here, but. So again, of course, it sees that style, but you could type in whatever one you want, right? Whichever one you had. I'm going to pick that table. What layer do you want to use? I'm going to do the wildcard, all right? And then if you look here, it's saying, do I want to do XREFs? No, I don't. Blocks? No. New objects automatically? Of course. Automatic updates? of course, and then you select the entities that you want to apply this to, press enter. Now, if you look here, it's saying select, or you define the upper left corner of the table. So I'll pick over here. Now, it's kind of weird as it does let you size the whole thing the way you want to, but normally you would just press enter here because that's the size you want it to be, right? It's a one-to-one table, and you'll use a viewport to, size it one-to-one. It does put on the current layer, so I'll go in here and let's just set this to the correct layer. So I have a tables layer in here, and we'll just click on that, and there's my layer. Now, just for this, presentation purposes, I am going to make this a little bigger here, just so I can stay zoomed out. All right. So as you can see here, I've got all the different, entities here that I, for them, okay? And the length is not coming in. We'll check that in a second. But basically, let's actually kind of look at this here. Of course, this is the cool thing about all of this is that if I take, I'm just going to copy, this around, you'll notice what does it do to the table, right? It's updating automatically. Again, that's pretty powerful functionality, all right? Let's look at something else though. Let's go to define property sets. We'll just toggle off that filter. Let's go here and pick this. All right, let me go ahead and go to the default format. The first thing I want to do, let's change that gap to like 0.025. That way it's actually, if I hit apply, it should actually update in the drawing. No, it didn't update. That's fine. We'll hit OK in a second here. All right, and then applies to, already did that. Let's go to columns here. Let me check the length one. Aha, I see what happened. It's using the rotary feature. I don't know why, but maybe I picked the wrong one. Let's go ahead and delete that column. And we'll delete that column and click add column. And I want length right there. So let's pick that one. And then length. And then click OK here. And then let's check that first. There we go. Those are updating now. OK. And of course, it did actually do the buffer and everything. Now, so that's kind of, again, that in itself is actually pretty useful. Just if you select it, notice how the grips look a little different than an AutoCAD table. But if you right-click, you have access to, or it exposes a whole bunch of additional functionality, like update schedule table, etc. Again, the cool thing about this is that if I select this, let's say this here, and change the size, notice how it updated that length automatically. All right. Now, let's say this is okay. I want to organize this to look a little better. Maybe organize it by owner, then by size, etc. Right? So if you go back to that there, again, you could type schedule, but it's much easier just to pick that button, and then I'll turn off the filter. Let's go back to the style. And then if you look here, there is a sorting/grouping category. Let's click add. I want to first sort by the owner. Click OK here. I want to sort ascending so that it actually does it. It's kind of a weird way, but that does work that way. I can do that. You can change the group format, etc. I also want to add another column and sort by material. And we'll do that same thing there as well. And then, so owner, material, and then we'll sort by size as well. Okay. Like that and that as well. Let's click OK, see what that looks like. As you can see, nice and easy, right? It automatically does it, and that's really, really useful. Okay, so it's kind of a nice way of doing it, right? Now, this rounding is kind of, I want to just obviously round up, right? Who cares? We don't see 396.6, etc. So this might be a little harder to kind of find, but basically what it is this. You have to kind of look at, how it's actually working. So if we go to the table, you'll see that in the defaults or the format for that column, if we go to length here, and we go to modify, it's using a data format called standard. So what you would want to do is create it's leveraging this right here. So this is the data format right there. So you want to kind of add your own. I'll just edit standard, but this is how this works. So I can just change this to, what's the sample data. So let's say I want that. I also, what unit type is this? This is a length. So I'll just change that. What units is it in? It's in feet. And then the precision's right there. You can round off to what? We'll just do, that's fine. Of course, I can just change it to 0 and then click OK here. Notice how you're done, right? Really simple, straightforward. They're pretty simple to do, okay? So that's actually really kind of nice little functionality there. Now, a couple things you could do here. I don't know why you wouldn't just leave this and be good to go, but you can select it, right-click, and you can convert it to an AutoCAD table. I'll just pop it over here. and now it's an AutoCAD table. I honestly don't know, there's all the functionality you ever need is in here. The problem with doing this is that it's not linked to the property set. So I actually don't know why you'd want to do that, but like I said, almost all the settings that you want to edit for a table are in here anyway, so there's really no reason to do that. Now, that said, there are times when you might want to export this to an Excel spreadsheet, and that you might want to do. So again, select the table, right-click, and then export. And then what it does is automatically goes to Excel. Now, for some reason on this machine, I'll test it out one more time. When I did this before, it was telling me I didn't have Excel installed, but let's try it one more time. Utility, and I'll just say EX, and let's see what happens. And we'll click OK here, and looks like I did it. What I was going to show you was, even if it doesn't do it, okay, it's not the end of the world, right? All you got to do is go over here, and if you look here, you can export this as a CSV. All right, so if I go over here, I hit OK, now it exports it as a CSV, and if you look here, here's the utilities in Excel. Like I said, it was giving me some issues before. I don't know why, but I just basically export that as a CSV, that's all. So you can kind of see it does it exactly like the table does here. And of course, if it's a CSV, it's going to be in a little bit of a different kind of, it just comma separated, right? So it does each individual one, which is actually what you might want, depending on what you want to do. Again, it'll organize it like the table, like you saw in Excel, but there it just does it like that. Okay. All right, and again, the biggest. So just a little information. If you make this bigger, just to kind of look at it, if you want to change the size of this to go back to, like to be able to plot it. Again, if you look at the type, or if you look at the dynamic input, it's saying scale. If you just type 1, it's now an AutoCAD table, right? That is literally, and just to kind of prove it, if I type a piece of text here, and I'll just, as you can see, it's already the right size, right? That's 0.07, that's 0.07, right? So it's 1-to-1. You can just change it back to 1-to-1, and then just kind of work with it in that way, okay? All right. Well, I'm finished about 10 minutes early, which is good. I want to show you a couple of new things in AutoCAD or in Civil 3D. All right. So let's go ahead and dabble into. Again, if you have any questions, just leave them to the end. Let me just show you this. This will probably only take 5 to 10 minutes. Again, it's a little disappointing. I'm not going to lie. What's new in 2024? I kind of wish they did a few other things here, but it is what it is, right? I still love AutoCAD. I still love Civil 3D, but I kind of wish that they had done just a little, because there are definitely some updates I could think of that I'd want to add here, okay? So there's just a few, all right, that I'll just show you here that I kind of like. This first one is, it's called a smart block, all right? It's basically what it kind of is. And it's really cool functionality. And if they perfect it, I think it's going to be like one of the best things ever, for real. Like, I really love it, especially like in the architectural world or mechanical or whatever, okay? So let's say, I'm going to use my insert palette here to kind of update. Okay, yeah, it's just AutoCAD. Just making sure it wasn't something else. I don't know why it's taking so long. But this smart block functionality, again, this insert palette, I do like it, but they've got to fix the bugginess with the updating. It's got to be faster than this. But anywho, I'll go ahead and pick on this block here, okay? So this functionality, you'll notice, see how this block is small. Let me turn snaps off. I'm going to press F3, okay? So watch what happens when I start to hover near an entity. That's pretty cool. I'm not going to lie. Notice, normally, look at that block. It's small, right? But if I hover, it actually does kind of know and say, hey, you might want to put this over here based upon some other stuff happening in the drawing. That is actually really powerful. I kind of like that, right? That's actually really, really useful. Let me try it again with this one here, this toilet. Right, so again, it's small, and if I start to hover near entities, it should kind of wake up. It should. This is the bug I was going to show you before, or show you afterwards, but this one actually should work. I'm surprised it's not. It was working before. Let me hover over here. Yeah, maybe it knows that it has an entity there. Let's try this one. Yeah. All right, it's doing what anyway, this toilet was working, but this is what I was trying to show you was the feature's great, but it doesn't work with every block. And I have tried a lot. Again, it's brand new functionality. So once I figure out what it is, I'll definitely mention probably in the next webinar. But there's it's not, it doesn't work with every block. It's just the weirdest thing. Like, let me actually delete that. Let's grab the toilet again and see if it works now here. Because it did work last time, and it's not working now. It's weird. It's interesting. Like, it would not work for the sink, so I put the sink in here, and it just doesn't want to work. But this one, for some reason, does. Again, I don't know what it is or why, and what it's trying to do, but again, I see that as some seriously, that's like, it's using AI, obviously, to try and kind of figure out, hey, you are placing a sink with some walls nearby that are on this layer. I'm assuming that's what it's doing. I'm going to probably email Autodesk and say, hey, what is actually going on here? It'd be nice to, because whatever I have to do to the block to make that work, I'll do it, because that actually is really powerful. Again, I did have this working the other day. Yeah, it doesn't want to work for some reason now. I don't know why. Let me turn snaps on. Maybe snaps does matter. And maybe it wakes it up once the snaps are there. Maybe not. Anywho, it was actually rotating the block too. That's what I thought was really cool. It's like doing the align. If you ever use a dynamic block, it would align it, all right? But it didn't work with every single block, so it's kind of weird. But anywho. All right, so the next one is the replace block tool. If you ever used it in the, where is it? Replace block. Block replace, I think is what it's called. Or is that the, no, that's the Express Tools one. This one's called replace. Be replaced, maybe? Yeah, it's be replaced, okay? So this is called be replaced. All right, so if I go ahead and select on this, now again, it works in multiple, so I could pick on, this one here and that one there, and I'll just press enter. Now, I've got to say, just so you know, the first time this thing, it takes forever to pop up. And also there's a switch that says, hey, this is using AI. Do you want to take part in this? You can say yes, but I don't know what's happening. It does seem to, it's trying to figure out through AI, like, what is the most associative type block that you'd ever want to do. And as you can see, it's taking forever. So I got to be honest with you. I am not impressed. Again, it's release 1 of this, but once it sees the size, or probably it's using the layer that they're on, etc., it's going to suggest a bunch of blocks for you. Yeah, see, now it's popping up, and of course, I'm not even getting I don't know if it's the internet, but you guys, there we go. Now it's popping up a little bit, right? But it's trying to, these are recent ones or you could pick in the drawing. So let's say I want to pick on this one here, and notice how now it uses that one to replace them all, which is great, okay? However, what I don't like about this command, which I don't understand why they didn't implement that, let me just press spacebar to repeat it, okay, is it does not let you work with different block definitions. Look at the command line window. It says, the selection set contains different block definitions. Well, who cares? I want to be able to replace blocks that have they look different, and I actually use the wrong block, let's say. Or a good example of this is in MicroStation. If you save a file as, sometimes you'll get a file from another, engineering firm, whatever. It's in MicroStation. They're the same block, but because of the way MicroStation works, the block, it basically makes a block definition for every single cell. That's what they're called in MicroStation. Like, let's say chair. It would call it chair 1, chair 2, chair 3. So I usually would just use the Express tools to replace it with chair, but it takes forever. I was hoping that this would read that, but it doesn't. So it's the weirdest thing that it doesn't work on multiple. All right. And lastly here, and then we'll just open up the questions. This is the one thing, again, I honestly don't know. This is not that great, to be honest with you, of a thing. There are a couple things in Civil 3D that have been updated. But this one here is probably I would say the most significant that I like. Let's see here. Let me go over here, open up this file. Yeah, this one here. So if you ever use quarter transitions, I think I showed it one of the webinars recently. It's actually a fantastic functionality. But what they need to do, in my opinion, is actually update it with all kinds of tips or just functionality that I really think is necessary. For instance, here I have this. You can see in this view here, probably a little hard over the internet, but I've got a transition. I've got a ramp, right? And so, wouldn't it be awesome to be able to take a transition, a quarter transition, and copy it so that it uses this for the next ramp all the way along the way? Let's say you're doing a really urban setting. You got like 20 ramps. I would love to take this here and use that transition along the alignment, but you can't do that. I thought they would update that. But the only thing that's kind of updated in this is this. You right-click here and you zoom to. So you can now zoom to the entire transition or the individual one. I guess that's kind of nice, I suppose. The other thing that's updated, I don't have a data set to show it to you, but pressure pipe networks, they've enhanced some stuff with fittings and things. That's actually nice. Any enhancements to pressure networks are good. But that's kind of it for major enhancements that I want to show at least now. And so basically that's kind of it for the major enhancements to 2024. So, all right, Alan, were there any questions that we had?
All right, so yeah, it looks like we've got a couple minutes here. So the first question I received, can you add property set data through an AutoCAD field?
That would be awesome, but you cannot. And I really wish they would expose that. So, because that would make so much more sense, because I could label all these, right? Because if I go to place a text object here, right, press Control F, and then Control F. Oops, let me do that again. Just right-click, insert fields. Right, there is nothing to grab. There's no property set data. That would be awesome. Even if you pick objects, like some of you might be thinking, like pick an object here, pick that. No property set data at all. Kind of silly, so no. Maybe future release.
Got it, got it. All right, another question. How do you remove property set data?
Okay, to remove property set data, what you do is you simply select all the entities that have property set data. Let me close my palette here. Go to the properties palette, go here, and here's the button right there. So remove property sets. If I remove that, I'll move it to some, not all of them. Let me remove it to here. In fact, watch the table. You'll see it does kind of update. I'll pick that, and then you pick the property set you want to remove, and now they are now gone. Of course, that table's updated as well, so there's no, whoops, let me do it again. Click that and hit OK. That's too. There we go. Now it's done. All right. So that's how you remove it. It's that little button right down there.
Okay, perfect. Just one more here so far. If anybody does have any questions, definitely feel free to write those in on the questions or chat boxes. All right, when you're adding property owners in the list, what if an owner, yes, okay, so when you were adding property owners in the list, what if you want to add an owner that's not in the list?
Gotcha. Yeah, that's a good question. So basically, if you go back to, so if I select this, right, this list for owners is just a drop down. What if it's a new owner that's not in the drop down? What you can do is go to the define property sets here, and I'll turn this filter back off again. Go to your list. So this would be owner. And if you look at items, there's an allow individual property values to vary from this list. And I would, again, unless you have a lockdown, like this LOQ is locked. It's only ABCD. That's it. If you don't have a lockdown set of stuff, just toggle that on. Click OK here. And then now I will be able to, in fact, you'll see it here. If I select it, I can now actually go here. And when I click, notice how it becomes a field. And I can now type it in there. So that's actually how you do that manually.
Okay, perfect. So actually we are pretty much right at the top of the hour here. So if I could have you jump back to the PowerPoint, Seth.
You got it.
All right, and perfect. All right, so thank you all for being here. Thank you, Seth, for the presentation. It was great. And again, just reminding everybody, if you need to go ahead and contact us, you can call us here at 305-445-6480 or email us at info@ddscad.com. Regarding your needs, software, training, support, anything of that nature, just let us know. We'd be more than happy to help. Thank you all and have a great weekend.
Thanks, everybody.